Welcome to the APT Beyond the Classroom podcast. I'm so excited. Today I have with us Brittany Miller, who is the Executive Director of the Arizona Epilepsy Foundation. And so we're just going to start our conversation. I would love to just have you give our guests a little background on what has led you to this point in working with the Epilepsy Foundation.
Well, thank you for having me, Allison. It's an honor to be here.
Of course.
So I'm coming up actually on a year for this role.
Wow,
so I am
that
new.
went fast.
Oh, yes, it did. It was a wonderfully busy year serving the epilepsy community. But, rewinding how I got here 15 years ago, my youngest daughter, Brooke, was diagnosed with a rare epilepsy called Aicardi syndrome. Accompanying that is a whole long list of medical diagnoses, but all in all, we experience seizures every day. And so I'm an epilepsy parent, and it makes it really easy for me to love this job because I'm part of the community and I care about those we serve. But really, my background is as a parent. I got involved in patient and family advocacy at Phoenix Children's and have served 10 years and counting on their advisory councils. And that led to some speaking opportunities and some additional advocacy. It's amazing what you have to learn when you're forced to, and these medical mom skills I never thought I'd have to learn. But it's been good for me to channel them into nonprofit work. I did work for another nonprofit here in Arizona, raising special kids. My time there was wonderful, gave me a lot of the skills and training I need now. And then about a year and a half ago, I was recruited by the foundation to apply for the job, and they took a chance on me, and here we are.
Oh, so wonderful.
Thank you.
I would love for you to share the mission of the Epilepsy Foundation with our listeners.
Sure. So officially, the mission of the Epilepsy Foundation is to improve the lives of people affected by epilepsy through education, advocacy, research, and connection. So that is our National Epilepsy Foundation of America mission statement, and we all of us across the country embrace that. But what does that really look like in action? I think our vision statement really exemplifies it simply. Our new vision statement, which we launched earlier this year, which I really love, is pretty basic but explains what we do. It's so no one faces epilepsy alone. And to me, yes, and to me, our mission statement's important, but it's like in action. The vision statement explains why we're doing all that we're doing.
Absolutely. I love that.
Me too.
That's really good. So I wanted to ask you what you feel are the biggest misconceptions about epilepsy and how the foundation is working to address them. I know a lot of education comes out from the foundation, but just wanted to
definitely
have you talk about that.
So some things that just come to mind, many people really don't understand that epilepsy is a medical diagnosis. Especially our last generation or even before with my grandparents, still thinking that epilepsy was a mental health condition or someone was having a quote unquote spell, which say that to anybody with epilepsy or a parent, it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
But the fact that it is a brain condition, it's actually the fourth most common brain condition. 1 in 26 people have epilepsy. That is actually very high, and most people, when they hear that, they're shocked.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, honestly, people don't talk about it. I think there's stigma surrounding, especially for adults, when they are trying to find employment. There are barriers, and unfortunately, there is discrimination that happens. There's this misconception that if you have epilepsy, your life is over, which is so not true. We're always working at the foundation to empower people, provide research programs, support, so people with epilepsy can live their best life possible. When I'm talking about my daughter, she has all these conditions, but that's just a small part of her life. That's not who she is. Some of the other misconceptions are, that you'll never be able to drive or you'll never be able to hold a job. People don't really understand that there are different types of epilepsy. The media portrays it one way, the large convulsive seizures, which used to be called grand mal, but now we call them tonic-clonic these days, which is a very serious and real seizure type, but there are so many others that are different. And so, the Epilepsy Foundation, as you shared, a big part of what we do is educating the community because we want people with epilepsy to feel supported and safe and included and break some of those barriers down. And I think a lot of it's related to fear.
Yeah.
People don't know how to act or what to do.
Yeah.
But there are many people with epilepsy, Arizonans, living amazing lives and
Yeah.
overcoming obstacles and, teaching us all how to be resilient and brave.
Yeah. That's so awesome. So I wanted to ask you what role, I know advocacy is a huge part of your work.
Sure.
But I wanted to ask you about what legislative
Yeah.
changes are most critical for people living with epilepsy.
Sure. So I want to share something Arizona specific that's exciting. So
Yeah.
2 years ago, we were able to successfully help pass seizure safe schools legislation. Now, this is only in about 50% of the states in the US, so we're still actively trying to get us to all of them. But basically, for Arizona, if a child in public school has epilepsy and they fill out a seizure education plan, which is a document they fill out with their neurologist that explains, their epilepsy type, just specific medical information, when to do their rescue meds.
Yeah.
It's on file with the school. If they have that on file, the school nurse and at least one other staff member legally have to take a seizure education and first aid training, which most of them do ours. So
Yeah.
I am fortunate that I live in a state and get to work here where that has been embraced by our public schools, and they are good at it. We
Yeah.
train school nurses all the time.
Yeah.
From that legislation, it's been made much more possible for Arizona students to be safe in school, be able to participate more. On a national level, there's all kinds of things going on. We have a national advocacy team. They're amazing. They work in DC all the time. And I did want to refer to my notes because
Yeah.
we recently have been successful in being involved in getting a national epilepsy plan introduced at the federal level. And I just wanted to share some of their priorities, and I'm going to read them so I don't
Yeah.
miss anything. But there
Great.
was a caucus created to work on this. And so epilepsy advocates around the country, including staff members of ours, worked with senators at the federal level to get this introduced. And it's nonpartisan. I'm hoping that people see the benefit. But because epilepsy is so common, there is so much work to be done, and
Yeah.
we need national support for that. So some of
Yeah.
the priorities are, of course, raising awareness, educating the public, educating our legislators in Congress, providing seizure recognition and first aid training to congressional staff, which is so amazing that we are going
that
to train
is-
them on
yeah,
what to do.
That's so great.
Because statistically, those people have people with epilepsy that serve.
Oh, yeah.
Also, especially related to healthcare, making sure we have healthcare that is substantial, that will cover appropriate healthcare for people with epilepsy, and also expanding it to hopefully someday, include more seizure detection devices, treatments, services.
Yeah.
Also advancing, surveillance, research data, providing funding, to be candid, for
Yeah.
more epilepsy research.
Yeah.
And then protecting the rights of people, and also protecting and promoting the needs of people with epilepsy. So that's been
Very
introduced.
exciting.
Yes, it's very exciting. In fact, we were recently at the American Epilepsy Society conference in December, and the national plan, all these advocates from around the country were there, and it was just really exciting to see all these people who either have epilepsy, work in this field, or touched by epilepsy in some way coming together to get
Yeah.
such big legislation introduced. Is
So
huge.
great. That is so great to hear. Wonderful. Okay, so now I want you to share, because our podcast is really about getting information out there about resources.
Sure.
And so I know some of the resources, and you've talked about the seizure first aid class, but what other resources or programs do you provide to the community? Like if a parent or someone with epilepsy is listening to our podcast,
Sure.
what do you offer that they could benefit from?
Thank you for asking me. So, first off, we have a 24-hour helpline. So anybody, parent, caregiver, person with epilepsy, can call us 24 hours a day. I'll share that information with you so you can,
We can
share that with
put
your
it out there.
listeners.
Yeah.
And the helpline team are incredible. They're actually crisis response trained.
Okay. That's amazing.
It is. And, we've learned that people with epilepsy statistically really have mental health struggles. When I first started in this role, I called our helpline manager and asked him, what is the number one reason people in Arizona call our helpline? And I thought it was going to be, affording my medicine or transportation or more practical things, but it was actually mental health related. And so from that, we do our helpline. We also have a variety of support groups here in Arizona. We
Okay.
have an adult group, the Epilepsy Empowerment Group. We have a Tucson adult support group.
Okay.
We have an Arizona virtual statewide young adult group. We also have we call it the Southwest Parent and Caregiver Support Group.
Okay.
And in the next few months, we're going to be launching a Spanish-speaking support group.
Nice.
And speaking from experience, as a parent, I think sometimes the best medicine is talking to someone who gets your life.
Yes.
So that
Yeah. The
is
support
huge.
groups are, yeah. So do they meet do they meet different places? Do they meet? Yeah. Okay.
So in Tucson, they meet at a restaurant, and I'll provide
Okay.
that information.
Okay.
But they meet on one weekend a month.
Okay.
For the Epilepsy Empowerment Group and the Parent Caregiver and Young Adult, they're virtual, but they do meetups throughout the year. So it
Okay.
kind of just depends. Their
Yeah.
facilitators work, most of them volunteer or are staff
Yeah.
with us
Yeah.
and run those, but we coordinate and provide opportunities for people to get together.
Okay.
We also do community education events, so conferences. We have Epilepsy Education Day coming up
Yeah.
in February. It's a free educational conference for the public. We have 4 teens, pediatric and adult patients and their families. They'll get to learn from epileptologists from Phoenix Children's, Barrow Neurological Institute, Banner University Medical Center. Health education is huge. That's a big priority for our board of directors here,
Yeah.
and people are craving it. So
Yeah.
we have that. We also do community events. So we have a beloved walk here in Arizona. It's very well attended. It's fun. It's a celebration of the community. We do that annually, and this year it's March 29th at Seton Catholic Preparatory in Chandler.
Yeah.
It's something
We're
really
excited about that.
Oh, good. Yes, hoping you guys will be there.
Yeah.
Something really special about Arizona that we do that isn't necessarily done by every foundation chapter is we do camp. So for 20 years now, we've had Camp Candlelight. It's a week-long sleep-away camp for children with epilepsy. It's every June. We just announced our dates. It's June 15th through the 20th. And it's for children with epilepsy that are independent enough to attend without their parents. But we have a week-long sleep-away camp up in Payson. We bring up epileptologists the whole week, and we just have fun. It's actually been one of the most rewarding things for me because I'm in charge of it.
Yeah.
And just being up there, seeing kids with epilepsy build friendships, horseback
So
ride,
amazing. Yeah.
sports, all the things a typical summer camp experience provides. And we see seizures every day, but we all know how to handle it, and we take care of that kid, and we move on and just
Yeah.
have fun.
Yeah.
And then also, especially because this is where I live as a parent, is we have a new camp offering we started last October for children with developmental disabilities and epilepsy and their families. So children that may not be independent enough to come to Camp
Okay.
Candlelight. We piloted, we call it Camp Starlight.
Okay.
And we piloted that in October. We took up 9 families and did a beautiful camp experience for those kids. It was inclusive, beautiful, friendships were made, and we've now made that a permanent offering for Arizona.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And is that in Payson too?
Yeah, it's at the same
Oh, it's
location.
at the same place. Okay.
Yeah, Whispering Hope Ranch. They're a wonderful
Okay.
community partner. Yeah.
Awesome. That's so great. I didn't know. I actually didn't know about that.
That was new and
okay.
actually something that has been a big priority for me because I wanted
Yeah.
families like mine to be able to experience camp. Because of that population, we'll probably always keep it small
Right.
because those kids have more needs. We want to make sure everyone's safe.
Right.
So right now we're having doctors nominate families, and we
Okay.
hope to bring up a different set of families every year.
Okay.
But it was life-changing
Oh, wow.
for me and for our
Yeah,
staff
we'll
and
have to-
counselors
we'll
and
have-
families.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to get that info out as
Yeah.
well, how they can apply for that. Or
Yes, we'll probably launch that information probably in like May or June because it's in
Okay.
October.
okay,
So,
okay. Oh, that's awesome. So my next question that I had for you, actually, you've answered about upcoming
Oh,
awareness
I get
campaigns.
excited.
Oh no, it's amazing. It is so
Thank you.
amazing. Okay, so this is another question that I know personally. Your lived experience. You know this all too well. But I thought maybe you could share some of your insights on how people with epilepsy can advocate for themselves in healthcare settings specifically, and then in other areas of life. But I know so much of what the advocacy with your daughter, I know. I just thought you would have some amazing insights to share
Thank you.
with our families.
Sure. I mean, I think first off, as a parent or as an individual with epilepsy, remembering that you are part of the health care team. I think it's intimidating. We go to these doctor's appointments with these renowned specialists that are way smarter than I am, that have all this training and present treatment options. But there's sometimes a fear for parents to be able to speak up
Yeah.
or to share their opinion. And, when you get a diagnosis, whether it's epilepsy, MS, diabetes, whatever it is, you become an expert very quickly in that because
Yeah.
it's huge part of your life.
For sure.
So as parents, having the confidence to know that you're a part of those decisions and to be firm but polite when you're talking with these specialists, that you would like to be treated as such. And thankfully I've cultivated a team like that for my daughter. But parents and individuals, epilepsy advocates, this is our daily life. So some of these healthcare providers are amazing, but we have to go home and
Right.
live in the normal world. And so that's really important. Always, when you're more informed, you're more empowered. So
Yeah.
educating yourself, utilizing the resources we share. We live in Arizona where there are so many amazing organizations, as you know, that provide education and resources, take advantage of those, be a question asker.
Yeah.
And I think too,
That's
it kind of
great advice.
depends on, epilepsy. We have individuals with epilepsy that have epilepsy, but also are able to work, go to school, live a quote unquote more normal life. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have people with profound developmental disabilities. So it kind of depends.
Yeah.
But just knowing that people with epilepsy should have equal rights, children in school, should be able to participate in sports, attend field trips, have the supports and services they need to help them despite having epilepsy. That we have some wonderful schools and that do a good job, but as a parent, you're always advocating. It's just kind of how it goes. And on to college, college
Yeah.
students with epilepsy. Many of our camp counselors that come back and serve at camp have epilepsy themselves, and they're succeeding in our state colleges and doing
Yeah.
well because they've gone to the Disability Resource Center, figured
Yeah.
out the supports they need. And then same with adults, utilizing vocational rehab and working with their employers to make sure they have a seizure recognition and first aid training. Sometimes the staff will do it, and making sure they have a seizure plan on file. Having the confidence to know that epilepsy shouldn't prevent you from participating in life, and that skill isn't learned overnight. But as you're working with your healthcare team, your school team, all of those things, and then knowing you have support available. If anyone is in that situation where they need support in advocating, call us. We can
Yeah.
provide assistance.
Yeah.
But it's a journey, that's for sure. Being an advocate is something you cultivate.
For sure. Yeah. I love hearing about what the schools are doing, and that education that you're able to provide that. We do have a lot of teachers that listen, and I just thought maybe we could talk or elaborate on what else schools, workplaces, or communities can do to better support. And I know education is a huge part of that.
Sure.
But just any thoughts that you have on just
Yeah.
better supporting.
So this week I actually had the opportunity to train some related service professionals in a school district here on seizure first aid, and it really sparked a great conversation about like what specifics, because of course, we can educate you guys on the seizure types, the basic first aid steps, which are stay safe side, basics, stay with the person, keeping them safe, staying by their side. There's more that goes to it, but those are kind of our 3 steps. But more specifically, making sure, let's talk about school. So making sure that student, having the conversation, does this student need a 504 plan?
Yeah.
Or do we need to consider assessing and seeing if they need an IEP? Providing time for, help with missed assignments, or giving them appropriate recovery time post-seizure, making sure they have a chronic health form on file, because typically kids with epilepsy miss school or have appointments. living in Arizona, I'm just thinking of accommodations that we hear all the time that are so helpful. Living in Arizona, the heat can be a trigger. And so just being cognizant of that and making sure students are safe. But also, I think, too, the education school-wide, we have some of our schools that are starting to do epilepsy awareness weeks, which I just
I
love
love it.
so
Yeah.
much.
It's
Especially these
amazing.
high schoolers, they'll have a friend with epilepsy.
Yeah.
They're good friends. They want to support
Yeah.
them. And then all of a sudden we get the call at the foundation
Yeah.
that they want to do some awareness activities, talking about it. When you have a younger child, parents, sometimes are asked to come into the classroom and just make it normal. Just because Brooke has epilepsy, she has the same interests, hopes, dreams as you and I.
Absolutely.
And then, transitioning that onto high school.
Yeah.
And really, for those kids that have epilepsy that still, want to be in extracurricular activities, want to play sports, don't prevent them from trying out. I mean, of course, they have to make it on their own merit. But, there are times where kids are made to feel like they can't
Right.
do things because of their diagnosis.
Yeah.
And, teachers, I have such a profound respect for teachers. They serve such a huge role. It's not just the education, it's the support of the family,
Yeah.
the advocate for the child, and just helping them feel comfortable. And then, transitioning onto college and the workplace, helping individuals with epilepsy, know what their rights are, helping them have access to the disability resources that do exist. And in Arizona, we have great universities and colleges that have strong disability resource centers that can help them, get accommodations set up, communicate with their professors. There's also scholarship opportunities for people with epilepsy. So reach out to the foundation.
Yeah.
We have some great industry partners in the pharmaceutical industry that provide scholarships.
Good.
And then the
great.
workplace too, honestly, we hear from many adults, unfortunately, there's discrimination in trying to get a job. And so they're afraid to disclose they have epilepsy. So as employers, please, don't do that. It's kind of a basic
Yeah.
thing, but please don't do that. But also create a work culture where the person with epilepsy feels comfortable enough to disclose they have it. One, because it's important for them to not be prevented and to be employed, but also if they have epilepsy, they may have a seizure on the job. And so we want to
Yeah.
make sure our HR department knows how to support
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time. And, but it just really breaking that stigma that just because a person has epilepsy, it doesn't mean they're not intelligent. It doesn't mean they don't have potential. I mean, we have some incredible people with epilepsy in our state doing so much good.
So amazing. Thank you for all of that
Sure.
information.
Sure.
Okay, so my last question for you is about advances in epilepsy research or treatment that you're most excited about right now.
Yeah. So, of course, I don't have a medical background, but we, as working at the foundation, we have such wonderful partnerships with the up and up, epileptologists,
Yeah.
Cure Epilepsy, all these amazing organizations around the world doing research. And we help raise funds and support research efforts nationally.
Right.
Personally, I'm really excited about the advances in neuromodulation. So, there are different devices now that are on the market that people with epilepsy can have physically implanted in their body, where they use electrical stimulation to reduce seizure activity. There's something called the vagus nerve stimulator. It's been around for a long time. My daughter has one, but they just keep getting better and better.
Yeah.
DBS, deep brain stimulation. It all sounds very scary, but these days, those surgeries are often way less invasive than the typical brain surgery.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see the improvements and the advancements in technology. There's another one called RNS by NeuroPace. It's really, sometimes they have less side effects than pharmaceuticals. And in helping reduce seizure activity, benefit the person's quality of life overall. I'm also really excited about the laser surgeries that are now available. There are epilepsy surgeons in Arizona that utilize this method, and they can target an area of your brain that has seizure activity on an MRI, obviously way over my head because I'm not a physician, but where that seizure activity is, they can use a tiny, tiny, tiny laser and get rid of that area,
Wow.
essentially, instead of cutting it out using the laser.
Wow.
And It's amazing. I mean, there's
That
some of our
is.
kids with epilepsy that work with the foundation now that have had that surgery, and it's either cured their epilepsy or
Wow.
drastically reduced their seizures. And the procedure is, you can go home like a day or two after. Like, it's
Yeah.
not this crazy invasive thing. So I'm
Right.
excited to see the advancements
Yeah.
there.
Technology.
Yeah, and then also in neuromodulation because I mean, pharmaceuticals are amazing. I mean, our kids with epilepsy wouldn't be here without all the different advancements in
Mm-hmm.
medication. But for some children and adults that have intractable epilepsy or pharma resistant, we need to look outside of that. And there are
Yeah.
so many amazing advances. And
Yeah.
many of these companies are industry partners, they support the work we do. And I've learned as I've been in this role, these people truly care about helping
Mm-hmm.
people that suffer with this difficult
Mm-hmm.
disease.
That is so great to hear.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So encouraging. So, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of our podcast. I've so enjoyed hearing all the exciting things that are happening. You've just made such a difference in Arizona, and I just want to thank you for all that you do. I would love for you to share the website so that people can go and find this information. And then we will also link that in our notes.
Of course. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor. And if anyone has epilepsy or loves someone with epilepsy, Epilepsy Foundation, we want to help. And so please head over to epilepsy.com/Arizona.
Okay.
Also, I'm going to share my email. It's bmiller, Miller, at efa.org, excuse me. As a parent of a child with epilepsy,
Mm-hmm.
I know this journey can be lonely, but we are here to help you. And I'm honored to be here. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Well, this concludes our podcast, episode 4. We will link all of the information in our bio in the notes so that you can find these resources. And if you like our podcast, be sure to like and follow. And we just thank you for listening and hope that these resources are helpful.